All right. So this chapter is really long. Chapter 12 is really long. So I'm gonna break this down in two parts. Okay. So this is part 1 out of 2. Okay. 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 So chapter 12, we're covering all the eukaryotes, and so we'll go into more of these in detail. Um, but more importantly, I want you guys to be able to do like 12.1, like list what the characters of the fungi are. Okay. Um, differentiate asexual from sexual reproduction. You don't have to know the different phyla of fungi, but you should know the beneficial and harmful effects of fungi, especially the harmful effects, because that's more of what microbiology really is, right? For you guys, right? Um, how microbes harm us and how we fight back. Okay. Okay. So mycology is the study of fungi. Fungi are by definition chemoheterotrophs. Okay. Which means they have to eat organic matter. And since one of the other characteristics of fungi is that they have cell walls and they don't really move around all that much, they can't really go hunting for food. Okay, um, so they have to mostly decompose organic matter around them, like eat dead shit. Okay, or things around them. Okay, they're either aerobic or facultative anaerobic, which means they prefer to have oxygen, but they can survive without it. Okay. So make sure you kind of understand the difference between this and this, because um, a lot of things that when we look at it, it's always fungus versus bacteria in a lot of different ways. Um, like for example, antibiotics, right? We discovered penicillin in bacteria or in fungus because they were competing for the same resource. Okay. Okay. So um, molds and fleshy fungi. Okay. Um, the fungal cells consist of a hyphae filaments. Okay, a mass of hyphae is mycelium. Okay, so what most fungi actually are things that look like either the septate, these things have walls, or the um, conocytic, which don't have walls, but they're basically um, strings of fungi that grow mostly in the ground. The mycelium is mostly in the ground. Okay. Um, when you guys think of fungi, I think the first image that comes to mind is a mushroom, and that's actually completely wrong. Um, if you think a mushroom is a fungus, you think kind of like an egg is a chicken, or more accurately, a vagina is a chicken. Um, they really kind of it's only part of it. Okay, so um, there are two types of hyphae. Okay, the aerial hyphae and the vegetative. The aerial ones are going to make spores, and that's what the little black things are, and they're going to spread the fungus around. The vegetative are the ones that are growing into the food source, and they're the ones that are going to absorb the nutrient. Okay. Okay. The other things are yeasts. Yeasts are non-filamentous and unicellular. Okay, uh, and so these are yeasts. Okay, they're unicellular organisms where a bud can actually grow out of the parent cell. Okay, and you can see that it leaves a scar right there. You can see another bud forming right there. Okay, And there's a couple of scars here. So this yeast has already replicated a bunch of times. Okay. Under certain conditions, a lot of fungi are dimorphic, which means under really hot conditions, they grow yeast-like, they grow like this, and under colder conditions, they grow mold-like. They grow strings of cells. Okay. Okay. So you can skip the different types of spores, but you should know what spores are. Okay. Spores, okay, are asexual. Okay. They detach from parent and germinate in new mold. That's the whole point of the spores. I know this got disgusting, but I'm not sure if you guys have done it before. If you ever seen that something that's really moldy and accidentally touch it, there's a big puff of like stuff that comes out. Those are all spores. Okay. And stay away from the puff because you'll be breathing that shit into your lungs, and that's not good. Okay. But those are all spores. The whole job is just to take those spores and spread them everywhere. Okay. The mushroom, the underside of the mushroom, there's a whole bunch of spores there, and that's what the little cap is for. The little cap will burst open and spread the spores around. Okay. So unlike endospores in bacteria are not for reproduction. The spores in fungi are for reproduction. Okay. Okay. So the fungi also undergo sexual reproduction. Okay. So they're not like humans where we only undergo sexual reproduction. When things are going well, fungi do not care about sexual reproduction. They just kind of grow. Okay. When things are bad, they do. Okay. And so they undergo this process, okay, of sexual reproduction. There are 3 phases: the plasmogamy, karogamy, and meiosis. Okay. Gametes are reproductive structures. Plasmogamy is when the cytoplasm fuses together. Karyogamy is when the nuclei fuses together. So nucleus, like eukaryotes, right? Nucleus. Plasma, the cytoplasm. Okay. Okay. Let me show you as a picture. Hold on. Okay. So let me explain what all this is, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So basically, you have 2 mating types here. Okay. You have the red ones are little plus signs, the blue ones are little minus signs. Okay. So in fungus, they don't have male and female, they have plus and minus, or they have A and alpha. It really depends on the type of fungus. But that's not your concern, right? So when things are bad, these 2 things will actually combine together. Okay, the plus and minuses will come together. First thing they'll do is fuse together into one cell with 2 nuclei. Okay, so they're dikaryotic. See the little thing in the middle here? That's the dikaryotic fungi. So every cell has 2 nuclei, a plus nucleus and minus nucleus. Okay, these will grow into the mushroom. Okay, and then the mushroom, inside the gills here, these guys will fuse to form a zygote, and the zygote will turn into spores. And spores will either be a plus spore or minus spore. Okay, And then once they spread, they'll grow again. The whole point of the mushroom is actually the reproductive structure of the fungus. Okay. Okay. Hopefully, oops. Okay. I hope I show this picture. If not, I'll post it up in a second. Okay. Don't worry about the different types of fungi because I'm not going to test you guys on that. Okay. Fungal diseases. This you definitely should know. Okay. A mycosis is a fungal infection. So the most common ones are actually superficial, or cutaneous, or subcutaneous. There are very few that go systematic. Okay. All right. All right. So the economic effects of fungi. So Saccharomyces cerevisiae is used to make bread, wine. It's one of the most genetically studied organisms in the world, and it's really useful. Okay. Trichoderma we use to make cellulase. Cellulase breaks down cellulose like plant material. So if you want to break up plant material, that's where we get the enzyme from. Okay. Okay, lichens are this really kind of cool thing. They're not funguses, they're not green algae, they're actually a mutualistic combination of both of them, and they're so few together that scientists actually consider them one single organism, even though you have part algae or cyanobacteria and part fungus. Okay. So there they are. What they are a combination of the fungus, which is the brown stuff. So funguses don't have green, right? So they're the brown stuff. Okay, and then you have the algae in the middle, providing energy from sunlight, and then the actual fungus part of it, it provides the protection, and it also provides a substrate for it to grow on. Okay. So it provides the holdfast. The holdfast is another word for root. The roots of the thing that hold the thing there. Okay. Um, these are used for some dyes, antimicrobials, food for herbivores. Also, it's a litmus test. Okay. These are one of the first things to grow in a sterile environment. Like if there's a volcanic eruption or something that wipes out like a bunch of territory, these are usually the first organisms back, and they grow on like bare rock basically, and they're able to like break down the rock into dirt, and the other things can grow on it. Okay. Okay, algae. Algae are not a true taxonomic group. The reason why they say that is because if algae were a taxonomic group, plants would classify as algae. Okay. All right. So here are the different types of algae. Um, so you can see the different types of algae in their environment. Okay. Um, so the thallus is the body of the multicellular algae. There's unicellular algae as well. It consists of holdfast, stipes, and blades, otherwise known as roots, okay, stems, and leaves. Okay, that's what they look like. They're not actually leaves, and they're not actually stems, and they're not actually roots, or like really important um, scientific definitions, but not things that you have to know. Okay. All right. So this is algae. Okay. Brown algae. Okay. Um, Brown algae produce. These are the kelps. Okay. I'm sure you guys have seen this on the beach and stuff like that. Okay. Um, so like I said, these are the leaves. The blades are like leaves. The stipe is like the stem. Okay. And then on the bottom, the whole fast are like the roots. Okay. The matocysts produce air, and that helps the leaf float and stick up in the air or stick up in the water where they can absorb more sunlight. Okay. Red algae are reddish. They're not like bright red. They're reddish. They're more brown. Most are multicellular. They're harvested for agar and carotene. Okay. Um, the seaweed that we eat for like sushi and stuff is a type of red algae. Okay. Some of them produce a lethal toxin. If you've heard the terms like red tide, okay, red tide means there's an overgrowth of red algae, and if there's a red tide, what you should avoid is the shellfish. Okay, these guys produce a lethal toxin, but you probably won't eat that much of it if you go swimming in it and stuff. But the seafood, um, they filter a lot of food, so that the concentration in the mussel or clam that you'll eat is going to be much higher than in the water. Okay. Okay. Green algae store starch, have chlorophylls A and B, so they are the ones that gave rise to terrestrial plants. Okay, so you can see they're green like plants are. They have the same mechanism for using sunlight, etc., etc. Okay, diatoms. Okay, these are diatoms. Okay, uh, diatoms. Diatoms have pigment silica cell walls. Okay, this is actually kind of important. That's what diatomaceous earth is a bunch of earth of diatoms, high concentration of diatoms. Okay, and uh, they're high amount of silica. Also, we use diatoms for toothpaste. Okay, it's found in toothpaste, the silica in toothpaste. The little shells are what when you brush. They're what scrape. Like they're used for scraping property. Okay, so these are diatoms. One cool fact. Okay, most bodies of fresh water have diatoms in them, and depending on where you are, different bodies of fresh water will have different amounts of different types of diatoms. And so, I honestly, if you went swimming somewhere, I could take your swimming trunks or whatever the hell you were wearing that day, and I could tell you which pool you were at, or which pond you were actually in, or river, or whatever, based on different types of diatoms. Okay. All right. Dinoflagellates. These are dinoflagellates. Okay. You can skip dinoflagellate. Um, you can skip water molds. They're not that important. Okay. The role of algae in nature. Okay, one, they fix a large amount of CO2 into organic molecules, and they do this by photosynthesis. In fact, they produce 80% of the world's O2. Okay. So let me explain this kind of horrible way. Burning down the Amazon rainforest is really bad. That being said, they're not the lungs of the world. Okay, like oh my God, we won't be able to breathe without the rainforest. Wrong. We will. We breathe just fine. Most of the oxygen in the atmosphere comes from algae. Okay, most of the photosynthesis in the world comes from algae. If we want to trap CO2, okay, like reduce carbon emissions, one of the things we can do is grow more algae. Okay. And we can also use algae in oil production as well, like extract oil from them and stuff like that. There's actually a lot of cooler features that's going on. Okay. Okay, so protozoa are unicellular eukaryotes. Protozoa, zoa is zoo. Okay, zoo is where you go see animals. Proto is before. So protozoa are primitive animal-like things. Okay, and because they're animal-like things, they have animal-like nutrition. Okay. So let's talk about the feeding and growing form is a trophozoite, which you'll see in a little bit. We'll skip these guys, these guys. So, okay. Trichomonas vaginalis. Okay. These guys cause urinary infections. Okay. Okay. So, oops. Okay. So I want you to go over the more complicated ones. Plasmodium is an important one. Okay. Plasmodium causes malaria. Okay. And it sexually reproduces inside a mosquito. The mosquito injects the sporocyte into the bite. Okay. And then this goes. Okay. So here's the life cycle. Okay. So you can see the mosquito is where the sexual reproduction occurs. The human is where the asexual reproduction occurs. Okay, so the mosquito is actually the definitive host. Okay, and the humans are the intermediate host. Okay, the definitive host is where the sexual reproduction occurs. The intermediate host is where either no reproduction occurs, or where the asexual reproduction occurs. Okay. Okay. It should be the definitive host. Okay. So we'll give slime molds. Okay. All right. We'll stop here for part 1, and we'll pick it up for part 2. All right.